We're going to call the meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we're called to regular session. First order is approval and amendment of meeting agenda items.
Everything is as you see it.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the board meeting items for June 10th, 2020 as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the board meeting agenda items for June 10th, 2020 as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Approval of minutes.
I move to approve the minutes of May 13th and 27th, 2020 as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of May 13th and the 27th of 2020 as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Welcome, Annie.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
My phone must be a little bit different. I apologize.
Welcome, Annie. Good to see you.
Okay, next one is correspondence.
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
No correspondence. Public comment. 6, reports. Building principals report.
Before they head into it, I'll start off first. Today was the guidance for the startup of the 2020-21 school year, kind of the high points. I'm glad Michael's on here.
Welcome, Michael.
Good to see you, Michael. The high points is basically a lot of things related to how we're going to deliver the instructional programs and also social distancing and a number of issues such as that. We've already discussed pre-meeting here that they're setting a 35 square foot around each student criteria, which at best is going to be quite difficult for this district, and there's going to be a lot of thought process and planning going into that. Justin caught the words required versus recommended as far as 3 feet spacing on buses. That's another thing. All the meetings I've been in, they've talked about recommendations on how to do this through a hybrid program. And a hybrid program is a combination of the virtual or the video or the online schooling and face-to-face. So moving ahead, not so much for me, but for Michael and the crew here, there's going to be a lot of planning going on as far as how we're going to reopen these schools next fall, how we're going to observe the parameters related to the square feet per student, what kind of an instructional program are we going to deliver? Are we going to have to, section days where a certain segment of our population comes and then the other segment comes the next day in order to observe that square footage piece? There's going to be a lot of things that our district is going to have to address. Now, Michael, like I said, I compliment Michael and the transition he and I have been having. He's meeting with our administrative team on June 22nd. So I think there'll be a lot of in-depth conversation in regard to this topic on that day. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Future Superintendent?
Thank you. Yes, I would. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me attend again today. I just left the office here about an hour and 15 minutes ago. Candace Van Pelt, the Deputy Soup, and what's going to happen on Tuesday, they're going to announce it tomorrow. They're going to have a training. There are 9 parts to the reopening. So the first 4 parts will be used for to deal with the all the social distancing piece, and that's from the Oregon Health Authority. And then the next parts will be about the academics. So what we're going to do is they're going to have a training on Tuesday, the first part, and then that's where Lakeview administrators can get on that, and I'll be working on that from here as well, because my transition is with Lakeview. And then what we'll do then is, we'll get to the place where we'll get as much recommendations where we're going. We are not trying to get an A+ or an A. We're going to get the minimum requirements recommendation. Because if we go with the, past that, it's going to be is something that's not really beneficial, in my opinion, to our community in Lakeview. Some of the rules and regulations were written for Portland, and they're not really making much sense for some of the counties outside. So we'll be working on that, and I've already appreciated talking to Susan and Lane and Will a great deal. So we'll get on that and take care of it. So I know the board, it does not need board approval, but we will keep the board involved the entire way, because you're going to be hearing from the community. We want to make sure that you know about it. And then what we'll do is we'll put it out there and do a communication. We also have taken a step to do a survey. I sent the survey out to Will and to Susan and Elaine, and this survey will let us break down. It's 35 cents a student, and they're going to pilot it in 2 districts. One is Rainier, and one is Lakeview. So they'll pilot it in the 2 districts here. It comes out of Washington, Reynolds, and what it will do is allow us to segregate the data to see what the issues are with our community and with our staff. And that would be huge. That will save the administrators countless hours to get that data broke down. It will also help the board. So whenever the board is asked questions, you'll be able to have a talking point and say, well, 72% or 44% said that they're comfortable with this. That will help the board a lot. It will also help us when we communicate to the community what we're doing. I also want to point out that there will be some, every 3 weeks, there's going to be some updates. So this plan is a living organism. It will change as they change requirements. So I'm sorry it took so long, but I wanted to make sure I kept you up to date on that. After Tuesday's meeting, there will be a second meeting. They're looking at Friday or the one after that. A lot of districts want to get this in place before June 30th because, a lot of administrators are off in July and their teams there. Most of us have already lost our teachers. So we're going to have to probably work with our union as well, because that's going to be important for us to work with our union, because there'll be some different requirements that we might have to have some of our staff do that's different from their standard job. So that's pretty much it. And I don't want to take any more time, but thank you, Will, for that opportunity. And I appreciate you guys working with me, because it is going to be a very, like Will pointed out, it's going to be a very laborious task. The 74 pages long.
Thank you, Michael.
So I had a couple comments. Can I jump in there, Will?
Sure.
Okay, yeah, I guess it's for the benefit, I don't know if it'll benefit anybody, but I guess for the benefit of the meeting and for Michael, as you guys start thinking of it. I printed it off too today. I was looking at it. Couple things I guess came to my mind is like our classroom sizes. There's that requirement for 35 square feet per person in the classrooms. It seems like the first thing we need to probably do is measure each of our classrooms to know what that capacity is for every classroom we have in our facilities. And that might drive some of it. Maybe, if it's a 30 by 30 classroom that'll fit 25 people, maybe we're all right, maybe we're not, depending on the class. Some things in there, like they recommend like keeping a log for contact tracing. Is there a way for technology to work for us instead of, the boat drivers maintaining a log or somebody at the front door maintaining a log, having cameras at the doors and on
That's exactly what
that if we have to go back and look at the film, we can go back and look at it versus, taking the time to write every name down. I mean, it's a small community, people know everybody anyways. Another thing, is it appropriate to look at the 4-day week model, kind of a hybrid with a 4-day week, where longer class days for our kids, if we had to alternate which days they were in the classes and which days they were at home. Something to think about. And one thing I was talking about before you joined, Michael, is our janitorial staff strong enough staffing wise for the amount of cleaning that's going to be done on a day-to-day basis? And maybe we need to look at ramping up our staff in the janitorial staff so we can clean every surface that needs cleaned on a daily basis. That may mean a commitment of hiring 1 or 2 or 3 people. I don't know. Just throw that out there. That came to my mind. And the last thing, I guess, is as you guys are talking to ODE and legislators, is ever since we got into this COVID model with our education and then also within this plan, equity is a very large factor of everything that they're pushing. And one thing that comes to my mind is a lot of the equity is based upon ethnicity and income levels and so on, but there isn't any real talk on equity from rural to urban areas or urban areas, and you know, folks in the like Bend Lapine School District that have new buildings that are built to different standards and maybe have more common areas that they could utilize, and even in their press conference and in their plans that utilize outdoor areas where you have the ability. Well, I'm sorry, our outdoor areas are, you know, 20 degrees during the day for many months of the year. It doesn't work. So I'm not sure that their plan has an equity lens when it looks to frontier Oregon versus rural Oregon to suburban Oregon, or urban Oregon. So those are the things that came to my mind when I read it.
Couple comments on that, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
A couple things on there, I appreciate that. That's exactly what the camera is. What a lot of small districts going to do is put it out there and just keep track, because otherwise you have to use a staff member, and that doesn't make sense. It's just not cost efficient, and Janet will hurt us, you know, for spending money we don't need to spend. Also, too, as for the equity piece, if you look at that line, we worked very hard. There's one line there. All we have to use is the equity lens from Oregon to say our plan was looked at that. So we're going to look at that equity plan, and if you look at that equity lens they have, there are 7 standards in there that will not pertain to Lakeview. So that's what we got to do. We just have to look at it, show that these 7 do, these 2 we looked at, we're fine, and go from there. Just the way sometimes, yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. The 4-day work week might be something we look at, because that might be we use specialists at the end. The problem is, if you look at the cross-pollination, they want us to do everything in cohorts. If you look at those cohort models, that will fit in certain schools. You know, Adele will fit perfect. But the problem then with that cohort issue is cross-pollination. So if I'm a specialist coming in doing speech therapy, I'm going to cross into 8 or 9 different cohorts, and that just defeats it. Also, too, I mean, I look at, you know, one of our board members came from, you know, has a large family like I came from. Boy, that was cross-pollination. We had 9 different grades represented, and we had 2 different bus routes, you know, the way it went to different places. So we all came back together. So if our family would have cross-pollinated the entire community. So I'm just saying there's a lot of things that really don't fit this plan, and we will do our best to be in compliance, and I will make sure, and our team will, to make sure that we are compliant. But there's also some things that really, you know, as Susan pointed out to me earlier this week, or last week, they're really irrelevant. So I don't want to take any more time, but yes, I appreciate those suggestions. We'll look at everything for it, but the simple math is, how do you also get social distance on a bus? Like Will pointed out to me, the largest bus route that we have in Lake County, coming from the school, there's no way we can keep social distancing in that bus route unless we send 2 buses out there. And the problem is then you're talking about kids who are on the bus a long time. So we will work our best to make sure we're in compliance. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Bet. Who would like to start the principal report?
This one is a witness protection program because you can't see her face.
Oh, she left the meeting. She hit the wrong button.
Ship her.
Oh, she's back.
I didn't do that on purpose.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be nice to have Mr. Stratton go first because he has so many exciting things to talk about with graduation when I don't have a ton to report, but I have some comments about the guidelines that came out.
Go ahead, Susan.
Okay. Well, the first thing I'd like to start off with is kudos to the high school staff. I know our graduation was not what we are normally used to. We do a large ceremony with lots of pomp and circumstance, but I was a participant, a spectator down the street at 80 Hay for the parade, and we made signs, and it was a good time. And older people that we have in our family were able to participate by watching the live feed, and they were very comfortable doing that from their home because they were at high risk for COVID. So I just thought that came together nicely in difficult circumstances. Good job to the high school. As far as the elementary school, we are winding down. We have more questions than answers at this point. But just kind of to get you up to speed as to what we've been doing the last few weeks, we have been holding RTI meetings, planning for next year and what our RTI program might look like. As if we were going to open normally, we've done our planning. some changes in duty schedules, all that kind of stuff. We're ahead of the game in the event that we open on site. We are working on year-end reports, working with Susan Walkerson on the Title III report. Our teachers are still continuing virtual PD. They've been doing, the K-2 teachers have been doing some intensive reading, and our new hire that we hired last month has been jumping in and doing all of that with them. And we're actually so far ahead in our summer cleaning, she's already moved into her room. And so they've got bulletin boards up and they really want to go on this. The Fremont Library is moved. We're putting the books back on the shelf at the Hay Library. Like I said, the custodial staff is so far ahead with some other summer waxing that they are doing some painting at Hay, which is long overdue, and getting the things spruced up a little bit where we have time, trying to be good stewards of the time that we do have. I will tell you that I'm excited about my new kinder hires. One's a first-year teacher. One is somebody that's been in our community for quite some time and is very excited to come on board. I don't know that we have the memo for those guys yet, but they are very involved in what's going on already in our schools. As far as the guidelines, teachers have access to those. I've had them in and out of my office all day long. They're nervous. 3 staff members in the last 2 days, 2 of which are very close to retirement age, have expressed concern about staying in a distance learning model and them not wanting to continue. I think the common theme is, that's not what I signed up for. I signed up to have interaction with kids and high-five kids and take care of their emotional well-being the best I can for the 6.5 hours I have them a day. So like I said, we have more questions than answers at this point, especially after these guidelines came out. When we get to handbooks later on, because of these new guidelines, I would like to let the board know that I think at the elementary level especially, I have not talked to Lane about this, I'll be drafting some kind of a supplemental parent handbook and staff handbook in whatever model we end up going through, choosing, so that we have something supplemental. And if I can get my act together and get it online before we start registration in August, they'll have it online. Otherwise, we'll do paper copies and get that information out. I just want as many avenues of whatever we decide to do to go to those parents. I have some of the same concerns that some of you brought up, but more specifically, if I'm serving lunches in the classrooms and the cohort groups, that means my cafeteria will probably be set up as a classroom as well, which means I don't have access to a whole lot of PE services. The screening was one of my bigger concerns. Transportation, obviously, with the little guys. And then daycare for our families for those littler kiddos. And when we split up cohort groups, if we don't use something geographic, the big kids are expected to take care of the little kids, and how does that work for our families? We operate on a lot of volunteers down at the elementary school, and we would be restricting those volunteers coming in and out. We have a lot of community members that are in and out of our schools that bounce between those cohort groups. We would no longer be able to honor that, and field trips would be curtailed. Assemblies would be quite a bit different. Could still use, do them, but not in the same fashion that we have, and all those challenges just keep cropping up. I can tell you that if we're doing lunch in the classrooms, I have, Will knows this, and Michael knows this because we've toured the cafeteria, and Janet does, that in about 35 to 40 minutes, we serve somewhere between 200 and 250 meals in that cafeteria. So that stretches out our lunchtime if we're going into those classrooms, and it just takes our learning time. And those are some pretty big concerns for us at the elementary level. So kind of just trying to wrap my head around this. I've got a lot of highlighted pages. So
Susan, are you?
You might want to mention to them that that volunteers under the plan are not allowed to come on campus.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's in I strongly recommend that all your field trips are canceled or postponed. Your assemblies that you would have each month, your volunteers are not allowed in the school. You can, I just think about our robotics program and our food court person and and all of those folks that volunteer and help little kids listen to them read. And that creates some concern for us. We can handle some extra scrubbing and help get custodial help to do that, but wrapping your head around the logistics of this is a little overwhelming right now. That's all I've got right now. Do you guys have questions for me?
Yeah, I do, but go ahead, Michael. Look like you want to have.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to mention that one of the solutions that might be for the volunteers, just to think out loud to everybody, because verbal processing, is that they do a service contract. So we pay people who come and grow robotics $25. There's a way to get around some of that, so that way those volunteers, it might be an option for them. It'd be a service contract for a volunteer for a specific thing, and that would be a $25 honorarium, and that will allow us to get them on campus and check them. But I'm just trying to show that, because I know a lot of my volunteers, our programs in our district now, in our district in Lakeview, I look at all the volunteer hours. We need those volunteers to keep those programs going. So that's a possible solution for it.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, Susan, I didn't get a chance to read or print off the report, but I read a little bit of the press release in Oregon Live, and I saw the part 2 about teachers having to wear face masks or shields. That's got to be a concern, I'm sure, for them.
They're concerned for their own health and breathing in those masks. I know your nurses at the hospital, there's some of them that have headaches by, about 2/3 of the way into their shift. And I think we're going to see an uptick in people that have some health issues because they're wearing a mask all day long. Some of them will refuse. They've already told me that they will. And so we'll have to figure out how all that looks. But my question in that was, who will be responsible to provide that? Because if we're asking our kids to do it, where is that supply line going to come from?
So I was gonna speak to that. So I see it's a face mask or face shield is the requirement. And I would anticipate that, like most everybody else, employers are responsible to provide that to their employees. We would not be responsible to provide that to the students. We'd be responsible for our employees. With that said, somebody recommend me talking to Judy Clark at the county health. The county got like 5,000 of the, not the N95s, but the KN95s. The N95s are approved for medical, KN95s are not. But they were looking for homes for some of those, and I know me at my work was able to procure 300 through the, and so they may have some of those and also access to face shields as well.
And the teachers sounded much more excited about face shields because those kids need to see their mouths when they're teaching letter sounds, and that's a huge issue for them. But it also in the recommendation says that disposable ones need to be thrown away each day, or cloth ones have to be washed each day. And so, my question is, how do you monitor that with kids, if you can? And then I have 55 employees alone. That's not counting lanes to do daily, to go through daily masks every day. Big expense, big supply chain there.
Well, the one thing that I saw, and I just looked at the little highlights basically of this mess, and I did see where it said students won't be required to wear face coverings, although they say it's recommended.
Right. And you have parents already that will say, I will not send my child if it's required, so that's helpful. The same little guy that wears the same mask for 2 weeks is a rough shave. Do we monitor that or just let it go? An issue, a safety issue for other people.
So, Lane, we've got the football helmets.
Look into the required versus recommended. The washing daily is recommended, not required.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Susan? Thank you, Susan.
All right, high school Graduation was, I'm gonna chalk it up as a success. Huge thanks to my grad team, which is the admin team and my ladies there in the building, Emma, Brandy, and Deanna. But not only that, just the crew at the high school, all the teachers that helped, the maintenance department, the radio, Kurt Lutke with his live stream and the video he's making for all the seniors. Town of Lakeview came out twice and helped me with something. And then, of course, Chairman Schulberger and Mr. Cahill for being there for us. We've gotten nothing but positive reports from seniors and senior parents. The best piece is how the seniors were surprised once the parade started, how many people were out on the parade routes and how personable it was and how fun it was. It made it more of an individual event. So I've even had some parents reach out to me that normally don't in a positive way and have been super, super positive about it. So for not knowing what it was going to look like and in typical Lane Stratton fashion, waiting to the last minute to see how much we could or couldn't do, I'm excited at how it went down. And a lot of people have asked that the parade become a routine, something we do all the time. So we may have to see how that works. Again, I can't thank, Mrs. Mize, the senior class advisor, Deanna, Emma, and Brandy, and Chris for all the help they did planning it, and then us delegating jobs to the other staff members to get that all put together. And then I'd be in trouble if I didn't say thank you to my two daughters and my wife and their fast action getting the extra tent set up to save Kurt's video equipment when we decided to get a little wet there around graduate number 7. So we started student checkout this week, grades 7 through 11. And again, we used social distancing measures in place. We limited staff. We probably had 5 or 6 staff members helping with the checkout. And it went really well. I think we're down to 70 students that still need to complete total grades 7 through 11. And of those 70, we probably know where 20 are at. So we'll get it. They're going to come either tomorrow or they're going to come next week because they're on vacation or out of town. So we used the instant messenger tonight. And I also had my ELL staff call a handful of our Latino families to remind them to come in tomorrow. So we're hoping to be around 20 or 30 kids after tomorrow that haven't done the checkout. And also in the checkout, Mrs. Harris has been able to have an individual meeting with every student that's done checkout to talk about their grades from this either quarter as a middle schooler or this semester as a high schooler, and then also do their forecasting for next year. And any student who was still in that incomplete or wasn't passing the classes during checkout, we grabbed them and gently placed them next door in a classroom where there was 1 or 2 tutors, including myself, helping them finish up some of their classes. So we've gotten a handful of kids at that 60 percentile or higher and still working on that. The 9th through 11th grade, we've started their credit assurance earning plans already, putting some of those together. Those are those plans for students who have an incomplete as of Friday. We broke it down into 3 tiers. Tier 1 is the students who are at that 50 to 59% and will take like 1 or 2 assignments to get that passing grade. Tier 2 are students who have 1 to 3 classes that need a little bit of more help. It will take more until the end of June, and that's kind of our cutoff between a Tier 1 and a Tier 3 kid. And then our Tier 2, 3. And then our Tier 3 students are students who didn't do much at all during the closure, and that's going to take some intensive possible summer school and classes step up with Miss Stratton and possibly before and after school tutoring next year to get it back on track. Right now, we see about 20 students in the high school that are going to be on a credit assurance plan after June 30th. We did a count today, and I counted 22. Mrs. Harris said, no, we're at 20. And I trust her because she knows the students a little bit stronger one-on-one on what they're doing. So if we're at 20 at June 30th that need to be on a credit assurance plan, we're going to throw a little party because no matter what we did with or without the closure, we'd probably have 10 or 12 kids who would be going to summer school or on a credit retrieval plan next year anyways, because that's just the nature of beast of high school students. grades 7 through 8. Now this is a funny picture here on grades 7 through 8. We currently have 58 students, which is about half of the middle school, that has one or more failing grade as of tonight. We think it'll be down to about 40 tomorrow. But that's a true picture, I think, kind of how the COVID experience affected our students, because that is a fourth quarter grade. They came into COVID with 0 points, 0 percentage. So their total grade has been this distance learning for all. Where the high schoolers had that third quarter because they're on a semester grading plan. So to get a true picture of how distance learning worked, might be a good idea to look at those middle schoolers where half of them had at least one failing grade. But I also caution you because the middle schoolers at some point in time also knew, one, it was pass-fail, and two, the governor was doing social promotion with them, meaning they do not have the credit earning assurance plan. They will automatically go to grade 8 and to grade 9. There is no retention for those two grade levels. Well, actually K through 8. So something to think about there. My next year, we've started discussion on what's up for next year and what it may look like. ODE released their Ready Schools Safe Learners Guidance for 2020 school year. Individual districts will have to make building plans, not a district plan, building plans for how they will accomplish the requirements set by ODE to be back to a regular school, a hybrid school, or an online school. Plans will need community health partners review and approval. They'll need to be submitted to ODE for review and public access. And for those of you who haven't had a chance to read it, there's 8 areas that the plans have to address: public health protocols, facility and school operations, response to outbreaks, equity, instruction, family and community engagements, mental, social, and emotional health, and staffing and personnel. The thing is I'm not, again, it's not that I have a few good traits. I am a last minute guy, I'm a procrastinator, but I also think with this process, we need to kind of be procrastinators, because if we jump right now and try to write a plan with what they put together today, they're changing it every 3 weeks. Every 3 weeks they said they're going to change it. This is version 1.00. By next month, we're going to have a version of probably 2.21 or whatever, and they have a numbering system and how they're going to change it. So I think we need to not panic right now. I think it's important that maybe if you want to write letters to your legislatures and say this is not going to work for Lakeview, this is not going to work for our families. I'm excited about the survey we're going to do because that will give us some data to support it. But I think we need to wait a little bit before we go crazy about writing a plan, because we're probably going to be able to revise it a few times. I think making an outline and looking at things, for instance, measuring classrooms, I think is important. We need to know that square footage, just in case we do have to abide by that 36 square feet per student. I was in Mr. Louis' room when this first came out, and we think we can get 18 kids in Mr. Louis' room, accounting Mr. Louis. Because the classroom learning space is also crowded by TVs, monitors, bookcases, computers on wheels, computer desks, teacher desks. So actual student space may not be as big as the classroom space.
What does Mr. Louis normally have?
His Algebra 1 class is in the low to upper 20s. His calculus classes, depending on the kids, are there. But I would say 20 is okay, but it's going to be tight.
Yeah.
If you take a kiddo that's absent, our daily attendance, we're probably in the high teens, low 20s. But initial enrollment's around 20 to 24 per class, especially the grade level classes. I'm going to move on to staffing needs. I'm currently still in the search for a high school math teacher, which would be probably a combination of algebra, algebra 2, and geometry. Still in the search for an English language arts teacher, which is 7th and 9th grade. And I still have the personal finance / careers, which is 3 periods, and a handful of AVID. Mrs. Stratton possibly will pick up some of the AVID and or personal finance and careers, but we also have to look to see how many kiddos we need in the step-up program. Can we get away with just 3 periods, or do we need 4 or 5 periods, especially with the credit earning plan? And we really won't know that until the end of June when we've taken care of all of our tier 1s and possibly a couple of our tier 2s. Some concerns that I still have are the disengaged students. Big one that's popping up right now is academic integrity and honesty through the virtual learning and Google and Siri. Next year's startup, I'm concerned. We still don't have the yearbook back, and they're not communicating with us. About 2 months ago, they said, we'll probably get you there by closing, and now they say they can't because they've been affected by the shutdowns, by their own personnel and deliveries. So the yearbook's not going to be distributed by tomorrow, the last day. So we're looking maybe, depending on what it shows up, maybe having an August, an early August dance, and maybe do the yearbook signing in August. I know we're at 100 people outside. Countywide, it depends on what the school will be able to do. But kind of bummed that we did not get the yearbooks out before the end of the school year. And it wasn't anything on our side, it was because of COVID. I'm really concerned about athletics. OSAA can't say anything because they are, it's all determined on what ODE and the governor says. We're looking at, right now a lot of coaches are getting together and looking at maybe an Eastern Oregon League where 2, 3A, and 4As are playing each other. And just doing something the best we can. And I think that in a way is kind of feasible because of the number of cases we have on this side of the state. It's kind of a mini social distancing. We're not crossing 97 or crossing I-5, whatever it may be. But I know my coaches are really concerned with that. The next biggest thing I worry about is PACE insurance coverage. Probably one of the biggest blows we got this week was PACE telling all of us in the meetings that they will no longer cover us in claims of communicable diseases. As of July 1, PACE will no longer have communicable diseases coverage for school districts. So what does that mean for us? And so right now, PACE is saying that, ODE is saying something different, OSAA is saying something different, COAS is saying something different. We got everybody saying something different. And I'm really concerned about that liability coverage on that. So that's where we're at with my concern. Starting on Monday, Mr. Rose and I are going to start opening up some facilities for small cohorts, open gym and open weight room with some cleaning guidelines because we can. And I talked about OSAA. I'm almost there. Sorry, but it's good stuff. Different computer, so I'm having a hard time scrolling. OSA has Thursday webinars that me and Mr. Rose watch, and the AD workshops are still scheduled face-to-face, so I don't know what's going to happen in August on that. We currently have some coaching vacancies, 2 assistant footballs, 1 head girls basketball, golf, and middle school boys basketball, and then we are currently serving anywhere from 80 to 90 students, 2 meals a day on the walk-ins, and then additional 80 to 90 students on the bus routes. And tomorrow will be our last day for school meals, but I do know that the community program then in return starts up on Monday. So the community program will be taking over. I don't know how they're going to do it because it's not a school district program. And that's all I got.
I want to chime in real quick and thank the Lane and the high school staff on a wonderful job on that, commencement event, graduation event, or whatever terminology you want to give to that. Mother Nature came and hit us hard about 2 o'clock. It was quite an adventure itself between the wind and the rain and the hail. Barry and I were standing underneath that tent and these streaks of hail kept falling off there. And anyway, it added some excitement to the event, something we'll never forget. But kudos to high school staff for, sometimes when you're going through bad times and things like we have been with this COVID thing, some good things come of it. And I feel like that, the parade and the commencement event the other day was a very good thing. I, too, have been receiving nice comments from the community, too, as far as, doing something for our seniors and not just mailing out the diplomas, which was kind of originally said in all the conversations we were having when this whole thing began. Wayne mentioned timeline on the COVID plan or the reentry to school plan. The one thing that hasn't come out of our conversation this evening is a plan is supposed to be presented to our school boards right before August 15th. That's the deadline on that. And Michael, if you have anything to add to that, please do. But August 15th, for the time being, from what I've seen and everything I've read, seems to be the magic date. So, anything else you know about that, Michael?
No, we've asked for it to be different, but some of the schools are already starting, so they have to have it by the 15th. Now, ODE does not have to approve it, so that's gonna be important. But they're not gonna budge on the 15th date, from what I heard.
So August.
It's gonna be like a SIP. They're gonna get 500 SIPs and they'll look at 200 of them.
Yeah. So that's all I have. Thank you and congratulations, Lakeview High School, on a fine event.
Thank you.
Question?
I just wanted to say as well, Lane, it was great. I watched it online and it looked flawless, like you guys had done it previous years before. And you could see the hail coming down, but it was flawless. I mean, it really looked like you put it together well.
Thank you. A lot of it was my team, you know?
The whole team did well, very well.
Yeah, Evan Reese Technology, yeah, got Evan on there. I mean, he's part of that crew, the high school crew, but yeah.
Well, I'd say our local police too. Yeah, I don't know if we mentioned them or not, but they did a wonderful job as far as, our traffic control and all that.
So
So great job with the police.
I took a pretty cool picture of the stage and kind of kneeled down so it shows the graduation stage and the American flag. And we're somehow going to make a thank you card with that photo, either in it or part of it. And we're putting together a list of thank yous of people that helped us, and that's going to go out. So we got some things in plan just to show some appreciation to the community people that helped out. So
One question I have, I don't know if it's, I've heard fact or fiction. Is the last day of our school year tomorrow, or are we being told across the state that it's another day?
We're stuck with our calendar.
it depends on who you talk to on that question, because I think you're talking about the question of being able to use facilities or change from a school plan to a summer school plan.
Possibly.
And from what I see and from what I read and what was mentioned a month ago is your last day of school is your last day. The governor used the April 30th date so that it would be encompassing for all school districts in the state of Oregon. The June 30th, but again, she came back and said, but if your date's prior to that, that is your last day. That is why we're going to start opening our facilities with some cleaning stuff, some protocols put in place on Monday.
Basically, your approved district calendar stands.
Copy. Thanks. Appreciate that. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Stratton? Okay, Lonnie, Special Ed Director's Report. Oh, Lonnie left the meeting.
Chris Rose. See you on
I
the
did his.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Bonnie, are you there?
She's coming.
There she is.
Can you guys hear me? I'm
We-
having problems. I'm sorry.
You're on. We can hear you.
You left? You left?
I apologize. I don't know. I couldn't get my mute off. So, as the school wraps up, the special education teachers, I've been working with them and the principals on how we can meet students' needs and families' needs. I made several phone calls to families to check on services and how that's been going and what we can do differently. I think it'll be a part of our planning for next year. And then when I look ahead, I'd like to bring the special ed teachers in a couple days early before in-service so that we can do some professional development around, instruction planning, as well as how are we going to work with our general ed teachers on what we choose. And then also, we need some more training on our TINET training. That's our student information system where we do all of our paperwork. And it's federal requirements for paperwork. So I'd like to do that as well. So I'll put some together and you guys will see that later on in the summer. We've been planning for extended year. Parents are pretty resistant because of the, having to do distance learning. We decided to go with distance learning. Some of the kids that needed the person-to-person summer school, they're going to be out of town this summer, so that wasn't going to work. So we're just still working with parents, so we don't have a a concrete count yet, but we'll have that. We're working on that right now. So, that's basically all I have. Do you guys have any questions? Lane and Susan are a hard act to follow.
Michael, you have a question?
I just amazed at all the things you guys are doing. I'm impressed.
Thank you. So, I think they're wrapping up. They're doing a good job. They're sending the progress reports out as well. We do 4 quarters for progress reports, and the 4th quarters are going out before they check out. So, I've talked to all of them personally, individually on the phone to make sure that we're there, and I've been checking, and we're doing a good job with it. I'm really proud. I think it's been hard, and I think they've done a good job with the, materials and everything they have, and kind of thrown into this last minute. But I hope we can do better next year.
Okay. Thank you, Lonnie.
Thank you.
I want to say hi to Janet on here. Hi, Janet. How you doing? I see you're not on the agenda, but you're in attendance, so.
Yep, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. All right. Next up, old business.
We have none, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, new business, 8.1.
Well, we rolled the handbooks into this in case there was some discussion. You don't do discussion and consent agenda, so if there's any last things as far as the handbooks, now's the time for discussion, and then our goal is to approve them this evening. First, the elementary books, and then next, the LHS DMS books. So I guess I'll let you open up if there's any discussion.
Okay, so 8.1 is the 2021 Fremont ADA Union Elementary Parent and Staff Handbooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the 2021 Fremont ADA Union Elementary Parent and Student Handbooks as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the 2021 Fremont ADA Union Elementary Parent and Student Handbooks as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. 8.2, the LHS DMS Parent Student Staff Handbooks. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, do we have a motion? Go ahead, Corey.
I move to approve the 2021 LHS DMS Parent, Student, and Staff Handbooks as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the 2021 LHS DMS Parent, Student, and Staff Handbooks as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. 8.3, the 2021 extended school year. Is there any discussion?
Lonnie, did you want to say anything about that?
So I'm submitting 2 hiring positions, and one of them is Luann Anderson, and we've hired her in the past. We have a student out in Plush for summer school. I visited with her, and she can use the Plush school building for that one student with social distancing, and feels very comfortable with that. So, and that's a part of the student's IEP. So I'm asking for 8 hours for 6 weeks for that, for a total of 48 hours. And then the other one, Mr. Hicks, has resigned. He didn't want to do summer school this summer, and he's doing it for the last, I think, 4 summers for us. And so Kayla Tagg, our special education teacher at the elementary, has agreed to do it for this year. And so she's going to do it distance learning. There are 10 elementary school students on ESY. It looks like right now we have a commitment from 5, and she's trying to get a hold of the other parents, but it will be no more than 10 because that is what was on their IEP. So I'm requesting that, and she uses several platforms for students depending on their needs, and so she's going to do the also 4 days a week and for 6 weeks for the students that she does.
Okay, any questions for Lonnie? Any other discussion? we have a motion?
I move to approve the 2021 extended school year recommendation for LHS, or Lake County School District, number 7, elementary and Plush School District number 18 students as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the 2021 extended school year recommendations for Lake County School District number 7, elementary and Plush School District number 18 students as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you, everybody. 9, consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Announcements.
Well, I'll let Janet chime in on this too. Excuse me. Chime in on this topic as well. Reminder of the budget meeting next Monday night, June 15th at 5:30. Janet, is there anything you want to say on it?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, so a reminder of that. And, you know, being the superintendent's kind of like being like a parent, you know, you feel like your administrators are kind of like your children. You kind of need to give them all kudos. You know, I kind of put Mr. Stratton up on a pedestal here, so I've got to brag about everybody else. You know, Susan Warner, how she's weathered the storm on these meals, these instructional programs, these numerous packets the elementary is sent out every week. Kudos on the outstanding job Susan has done down at the elementary during this COVID time. Lonnie and all the numerous issues she's had to deal with in delivering instruction to the special needs student, not an easy task based on the needs of their IEPs. Phenomenal job there. Thank you, Lonnie. And then Janet on the budget, it's like a moving target, trying to figure out what to do with that budget from what we've been hearing from the OD and everything. And I want to send compliments to Janet on that. So hopefully I got the whole crew. Mr. Rose, what he's been doing, a fine job as far as assisting Mr. Stratton in keeping the ship afloat over there. And so anyway, I felt the need to, if I'm going to brag about Mr. Stratton, I have to throw something out for everybody else. So there you have it.
Well, it's well deserved.
Thank you.
Well recognized. Thank you, everybody. Okay, any other announcements? Next board meeting agenda items.
I have the 2021 board calendar and a work session on that. I'm throwing a lot of that over to Michael because once again, 2021 is going to be his year, not mine. So out of courtesy and compliments to Michael on that, so a lot of input on that and discussion around what your board calendar is going to look like next year. I think it's going to be as such. You'll have a look at it in advance, and I think we can roll it right into that consent agenda for approval. We're going to have a little maintenance report as far as what we're targeting as far as maintenance projects this summer. And administrators or Tandy, anything else to add? Okay, for the time being.
Well, hopefully we can adopt the budget, and then I've got a big resolution for fixes on 1920, and then I've got a couple of contracts that have come in that need board approval on.
Okay, thank you, Janet.
Hire a teacher too.
Yeah, hopefully we'll have some teacher hires too. That's always a hope of hopes. So,
Okay.
That's all I have.
All right. Next topic then is adjournment.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.